Hello, greetings. The thought that came to mind was magnets, out of all things, uh, and comparing it to light and darkness, sun, darkness, attracting or opposing. And there's interesting because then the creation is speaking, saying there's only two things. And we have those examples of two things constantly all over his word: light, dark, spiritual, carnal, old and new. Um, Old man, new man. I guess that's old and new, but and many other, good tree, bad tree, and it goes on. But the bad tree grows. It looks like it grows. The good tree actually grows for real. There's no trick going on. There's no lie going on. It grows out of the good and only reason that's good for growing. It's growing in reality, and it's getting nutrition, and it's growing. It's not a trick. So what someone sees there is what they really get to look at the good tree like that. But with the bad tree, it is still a tree, and that can't be denied. When we read about, trees and good tree and bad tree specifically, it's still a tree, but it cannot be the Father's way. It cannot be through any truth or good. So then there's a way to look like it's growing, to make it look like the good tree. But the way it works is all the difference, which is all evil. And the difference for good is how it works, which is all good. One is growing, one looks like it's growing. And evil can't grow the good way. It can't grow through truth at all. So the way it grows to look like the good tree is that when there's one evil or lie, whether it's an object someone wants to picture or a person lying or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just an evil thing. It points in all directions except itself, because it will never acknowledge self. So then what happens? It goes to the next thing. I guess you could start from the root. Let's start from the root of the bad tree. It points to something else besides itself and has needs to condemn someone, blame someone. And then it goes to the other thing, which moves, which doesn't stay in one spot. In this case, for a tree, it just went up a little bit. Then that thing does the same thing that the other thing did, and it points to something else, and it moves again. And then that thing has to do the same thing when it's evil and darkness, working the same to anything but itself. And then it moves again. And so now it looks like it's growing and it's spreading, but it works like a grenade spiritually. And it scatters in reality while it looks something like the real thing, a good tree that actually grows. But the bad tree doesn't grow the real way ever. It doesn't do that. So then you could say it grows and yet it doesn't grow. It grows in that through this evil, delusion, deception, and how evil works, it looks like it grows. And then you could say it grows in that way, but it doesn't grow, in that it has nothing to do with how the good tree grows in reality. That just actually grows. There's no trick. There is no pointing and moving to the next thing like that. It's actually growing. It's not a trick just to make it look like the real tree that's growing. Evil can never do what good actually does. The devil can never do, ever, the same works as the Father does, the light does. That darkness can never do the works of light, the Father's works, can never do that actual work. It's two completely different things. So then evil has to make itself look something like it, and then this is how it can do it like that, and it's sick. And you start seeing how it works and why it looks the same on the outside, because it's designed to look the same. And that's what happened with the magnets too, is teaching two things only. And it just came to mind that the closer a simple thing, uh, the closer they get to each other, the more resistance, and then a little bit closer, more resistance, a little closer, more resistance, and then they touch. But they would never touch without forcing it to, which is a deception, which is looking like two things are coming together, but it's not. That's the physical picture that I have right now with the tree, and the good tree and bad tree, on how the spiritual work is never the same thing. The devil's work spiritually out of the heart intention can never do what the Father's works are and does good. It cannot do it, never does it. It's just a massive trick constantly that someone's doing good, that a bad tree grows and looks like a good tree and tricks people because it looks like a tree. And the whole thing's a massive trick. And there's not two things with the enemy, there's only one. There's no divider of good and evil. There's not two things. But that's the truth. In the delusion, it's one thing. Both of these things together mix, saying it's okay, which is the most disgusting thing to the Father. That's puke, to vomit out of Messiah's mouth, to be lukewarm. Better to be hot or cold, but right in the middle is a mixing of cold and hot, and saying you can have 1 foot here and 1 foot to the left, 1 foot to the right, which means you don't do anything. That is literally the easiest path possible. Cold would be harder than that. Hot would be harder than that. But right in the middle is the most comfortable, which is the easiest, because nobody shivers when they're comfortable and nobody's sweating when they're comfortable. 70 degrees, 65, whatever it is. 110 is hot. Then, 30, 40, 20 is cold. To where someone would say it's cold and uncomfortable now to some degree, but right in the middle somewhere, combining both and making it one, it's comfortable and easy. And that's how easy it is to do evil. That's how easy it is to slip up and do evil, even for believers. But for unbelievers, that's all that man can do. And it's easy, and that's all he can do. Because good is not the definition of man's definition of good. Good is the actual spiritual work that comes from the intentions and thoughts of the heart. And the devil can never do that. Good has never done a single good work ever. Anytime, anywhere, since the beginning, never happened. And Adam and Eve were shown, which is all creation, even representing all creation. Adam and Eve, the whole creation, did not do good. They only were able to do evil. And that's a teaching all in itself, by itself. Even though the words don't literally say exactly that right there, the meaning is there when it's given. This is what it is. This is what I see. And it becomes simple and clear and will connect and flow with any other truth in all of his words supporting it. Because there's not only one place where something's taught. If it's a true teaching, it's taught all over his word. It's going to be connected in a way that can't be actually broken. It's going to have too much evidence and everything flowing with one truth. Therefore, the smallest little lie will break all of that perfect thing. But it can't be broken in reality, only in a delusion. Someone could say it's good, but what they're really saying is that good is broken and broken is good, without them even understanding that that's what they're doing, which is the same thing as calling good evil and evil good. So the magnet picture is like more of a physical picture of how it works that I'm seeing spiritually. where when they attract, that's a 180 work. That's the Father's work. And then the devil's work, which is opposing. These are two different works, same magnets. Just turn it around a little bit and boom, that's it. Turn it 180 and it goes 180. That's what the devil does with the Father's truth. He takes it that he didn't create and reverses it spiritually for the meaning in the heart. Perfectly 180, perfect, a perfect backwards thing. And then you see the signs and symbols and a lot of logos and things that are sold that often have that backward signature with symbols or words, just saying, hello, we're of the devil, we do everything backwards. And then they put the hush sign in front of their mouth and say, shh, we're devils, that's what we were trying to hide. You know, and why do they do that? Santa Claus is doing that for YouTube commercials. And Santa is the word Satan. All the letters are perfectly there. Santa is Satan, and it's Christ Mass and Satan and the anti-Messiah, God-man. How is it the world can't see that Santa is Satan? You know? But at some point, you know, this understanding, this sight came, but still, it's unreal though. It's amazing. That's what I mean by how can it not see? It's astonishing. And it's just some coincidence. Yet that's how it all works with evil. It's just chance, random accident, and coincidences left and right. It's monstrous. Every single time something even remotely happens like that, people will just instantly go blind and say, nope, it must have been the reason I'm creating now and thinking of. It can't be truth. It can't be truth ever. No way. It can't be truth in the heart ever. Never, ever, ever. Because the magnets coming together, two magnets, they look identical. There's no difference for an image when they're coming together, but you take two magnets and they're attracting each other, they're coming together. You take two opposing magnets and you bring them together, and it looks exactly the same as the good thing that brings together naturally without any force. It just wants to come together. And that's what the Father's love is. That's what the truth is. That's all one. That's what the body is. But it looks just like two magnets being forced together, but they are always opposing, and that you cannot get rid of this enmity. Even if you draw it together, it doesn't matter. That way is not allowed. It blows up when someone tries to do that and accept it as the good thing. They just destroyed all truth. They called good evil and evil good. When someone calls evil and evil and evil good with their heart, with their doctrine being discerned for teaching that, they just called all his truth evil. Because there's nothing left now when someone says good is evil and evil is good with their doctrine, with their secret leaven that Messiah said to beware of. That's why he said that, because it's tricky like that, because that's what the heart's doing constantly. It's desperately wicked and tricky at all times. It never does any good without the Father. There's zero hope for it without him. And not believing this has become stupid to me. You know, it's so obvious and simple to see when it's seen that anything but the truth starts becoming incredibly stupid and foolish. And I do read that the wisdom of this world is foolishness and was made to be so. So at no time is the wisdom of this world ever not foolish, because I read, just using scripture on seeing something, but we can read it. He made the wisdom, how much of it? We don't read 10%, 20%. It's because there doesn't need to be said that. Because it's true. There's no games or trickery going on when the Father's word says he created he made the wisdom of this world to be. There's no trickery. There it is. When it needs to mean exactly what it says simply, then it's a parable unto them, to the church world. When it's a parable, now it needs to be taken naturally and as literally as possible. That's amazing. When something is simple, true, and clear, that a 5-year-old can understand, and it just is what it is. It's simple truth. There's no trick going on. Then it can't be believed what it actually means. That all the wisdom of this world is foolishness, all of it. It's not 5%, 50%, 10%. The Father does no mixing. He doesn't set apart partial evil and call it good. And he doesn't take some good, throw it in evil, and now call this all good, throw a little bit evil and darkness and call that evil. What is that symbol? What's it called? The circle with the little, and then it's got black and white, good and evil, but it's got, what's it got? A little bit of darkness in the light and light in the darkness, teaching that there's no difference between the two. It doesn't matter how much, but man will make it about the numbers. If it's even a tiny speck in the white side of light, good. If it's even the tiniest speck of darkness in the light or light in the dark part, that's teaching forever perfectly that good is evil and evil is good, and there's no difference. So that's that simple. And that's what I saw one day, where it's like, why do they have a little circle on the black part of the symbol, but the white part, good and evil? And who can deny that that's what that symbol is connected to, good and evil? But why do they have black in white and white in black, mixing the two things? That's what it's teaching. And the Father's shown me it's never about the numbers by itself, ever. Where it doesn't mean anything by itself. So even if it was smaller circle, someone might say, but it's only 5% or 2%. It doesn't matter. With the Father's perfect way, all good is good and all light is light, and it's never evil and dark. If there is darkness in the light and it's being passed off as mostly good with some darkness, that is the lie of the devil right there, teaching that light is evil and darkness is good, teaching there's no difference between the two. They both are the same. They both have the same within itself. It's not separated for real. It's not black and white. It's mixed. But that's what came to my mind right away, that you say something and I could see a flood of people in the world, maybe that love that symbol. They got it in the back of their car. They don't know why they're doing what they're doing. But if they were to hear it just randomly, they would make it about the size. I'm convinced of it. They would make it about the size, the numbers, the percentage, which has nothing to do with the meaning and truth at all. It doesn't matter how small the little black circle is in there or the white in the dark. It doesn't matter. And that's like how lies work. It's either a lie or not anything. It's never 50-50. Now, our lack of knowledge for not knowing things that we need to learn doesn't make that untrue, that the Father mixes. He never mixes anything. It's either good, doesn't matter if we don't know something, or it's evil. That's it. And his word constantly teaches the two, and they're utterly separate perfectly. The lukewarm thing's the nastiest thing, and the scriptures, just make it clear. And Messiah's words simply and clear that hot is better and cold is better, but lukewarm, that's the perfect evil. 50-50, right in the middle, good and evil, saying it's all one. That is the nastiest thing. Therefore, that's like, it doesn't exist with the Father. There's no lukewarm. It's either good or evil. But you can look lukewarm. You can have a belief of lukewarm. But that's not the meaning of it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist with the Father. There is no blessing, zero, for doing those works ever, or believing and teaching and doing all those works in lukewarm land. And the creation teaches too that if you wait a little while, you'll go into the light or dark. So you're never there for a very long time. No one's actually lukewarm ever then, if it gets moved into the light or darkness pretty quick. That no one's actually lukewarm. They get pushed in either direction. and separated. And that's what the Father's doing, is separating everyone right now and to come. But it's already happening. It's always been happening. Separate from the nations, the people. And this is a great evil. This is a great evil to the world, because that's going to create the image of you're too good for them. And it's the only truth we know. If I were to say and believe anything else than what set apart really means, and his meaning, which is, more than just one thing, it's Father's truth is always deep, then we'd be the liar, calling good evil and evil good, and saying mixing and lukewarm is okay and a lot of sin is fine, no big deal. That's what we would be doing if we didn't believe in set apart. But the world doesn't like actual set apart. You're too good for them now. That's like all you can expect from the world, though. Can't expect them to like suddenly love truth out of the blue. And that would take a miracle. It would take a gift from above to draw them near, because man's not capable to love the Father first. Now he either loved his people first or people did. One of the two, because both can't be true. But if it is, it should be in Scripture somewhere that both are true. But we do read simply not that we loved him first, but that the Father loves his people first. And that's why something is done back when he does that first. And man's dead apart from him, and a dead man doesn't choose the Father and choose life. He doesn't know how, just like I didn't know how. It's just not even allowed. It's slavery to sin continually until that mercy. The mind, you can't even think. It's like you're not even allowed. It's illegal with the Father as an unbeliever to have any of his truth on someone's mind. It never comes on someone's mind until they believe and start seeing and learning and growing from him. Then it starts growing, but it wasn't because of our works. Therefore, it never will be our works. It never will be man saved himself. It never will be our own knowledge, ever. Even if someone's getting understanding, even if the believers, of course, if there's no such thing as an actual believer that never gets understanding, even while getting understanding, that's still true, that they have no understanding of self. Never would have came from self, and it's still not coming from self. This is, what fall from heaven is the picture, splat on the ground, if someone's actually believing and seeing that, because man's heart doesn't believe that. Before he believes, he doesn't believe that. No, he doesn't know what that is. It's just the natural man is who he is, carnal first. First the natural, then the spiritual, we read too. Adam and Eve are carnal first, and they couldn't become what they needed to, the new creation in Messiah, because Messiah didn't come yet, wasn't born yet. It's a strange thing to say in this world, to say he wasn't born yet, and that's why he didn't come yet, because he wasn't born yet. Something so simple and true and good, rejected by the world, but rejected by the church world. But then they'll say they believe he came in the flesh. Okay. They can say that, I guess, all day long. That's how easy it is to do evil and lie. The definition and meaning of those scriptures is not that Messiah was just a flesh, blood man just like us. That's not what it means to come in the flesh. It specifically means to come from humanity, from the genealogy and line. That's quite a bit of scriptures and verses throughout his word because of this importance, and then all of a sudden cut off and zero importance. That makes the Father look pretty stupid. But that's not what's on someone's mind, is it? That they're making the Father as a fool? That's not on someone's mind that's doing that work, is it? It's not. And if it's brought up, it's going to be a lot of resistance and hatred quickly, enmity. It'll be two magnets opposing each other. But see, what the false prophets in religion do is they say the opposing magnets can come together and be one. That's what they say. That's what I hear. That's what we read that they do and say. It needs to be understood what they're saying and what it means and what it's coming from. And it's going to look just like the two magnets attracting each other. It looks identical on the outside. That's the damnable thing. That tricky. It never can be the real good works. The bad tree can never grow like the good tree. It's a trick. It's just evil spreading out, pointing to another, pointing to another, pointing to another. And that's how it grows, pointing to another, pointing to another. The good tree actually grows. It doesn't do this deceptive trick to make it look like it grows. And Adam, Eve said the serpent made me do it. Serpent, however we read it. And Adam says, the woman made me. The woman gave it to me, of which you gave her to me. Adam says, Eve gave it to me and she made me eat, of which you, the Father, don't forget, Adam says, you created her for me, trying to put and stick the sin on the Father, who can see it right in Genesis, though. Does it say it like that directly? No, doesn't matter. The spiritual understanding's given on why we read those words and what it means and what's happening. That's what it's important. It needs to be seen, given. And I'm not aware of any example where Adam and Eve actually does a true good work. That's a teaching too that he showed me all in itself, meaning the only thing Adam and Eve did with capability of themselves through the enemy deceiving is evil. They sinned. That's it. Eve and Adam, both. They go down together. And one's destruction, wants Adam to join. And there's a reason why this world does say misery loves company. There's truth to this. It's actually really true. But we don't read the words just like that, literally word for word, so it sounds like it's being made up. What do you do about that? There's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. But the spiritual works, try to find a picture that show how these works are different, but it looks the same on the outside. And that's the magnet as one example to me. But one way, it's always attracting and it's natural and you don't have to do anything. It wants to come together. The other way, you have to force. It's perfectly 180 in every way, shape, and form. It's amazing. It's backwards as can be. Now in the first one, you don't need hands when it's close enough. Now you need hands to force them together. But if you find the means by which two things are coming together in the bad way, forcefully, with enmity between the two, real enmity, and you try to make it one, the Father blows it up like a grenade blows up and moves a bunch of people back into the air like they do, like make a funny with people blowing up in the air or some kind of cartoon, That's the picture I see when two things try to get together real close, but there's actual resistance and enmity. And one's light, one's darkness, but in the magnet example, this opposing force, if you want to call it, is always there. It's always there. So to call that the good way instead of the good way being good, which there is another way, it's flip the magnets around. 180, which attracts. But to call the evil way good and force them together and make them one, that's going to be the most resistance is when they're touching. The closer, the more it wants to go away. And I'm bringing that up because that's what it is like spiritually. But how much is seen at any time? by anyone. Just that this is true, though, that there's an enmity already, like we read in Genesis, and you can't force two things that are truly enmity against each other as one. That is the sick thing. That is the lukewarm thing. Because if we can see why it's so monstrously evil, it's like the heart of all evil, because it connects every truth, every branch that came from the root of the tree, and all the teachings and every meaning in all things. The branches go all the way down back to the stump, back to the root. Because right at the foundation, right at the start, this picture, this teaching, this thing calls all good evil and all evil good. It doesn't matter what it is from there. It can only be evil from there when the foundation is perfectly and utterly backwards. That makes sense to me. I haven't received anything from the Father that doesn't make sense. If something doesn't make sense to me, I know I don't know. That's all. I know I don't know, which is a gift in itself to know that we don't know. It's a very good thing to know that we don't know what we don't know. So then we can see it and ask. Just say, I don't know. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. I don't know what this means. I don't know what that means. But I guess back to looking the same. If you picture the two, you don't see the enmity between the two magnets that are opposing each other. Glory to the Father. What is this? I don't, gourd, I've never seen gourd. Oh, I'm trying to see, it's small. What is that symbol there? Mask or something? I don't know. It looks kind of, honestly, a little pagan to me, but okay. That's all I got right there. Just that one. All right. Hello. Speaking about magnets, time to flip the channel. It's not exactly exciting. Um, the enmity between the two opposing magnets, you don't see it with our eyes, but you see how it works, and it's real. Of course, there's other examples, I guess, especially with technology, but what we don't see with the physical eyes now, but you see the proof of the works and power. And so there's this enmity that we can't see with just the naked eye, and yet you see the works, and those works are backwards from attraction. But when you see two things come together, you see the thing you see with the eyes. The carnal man sees the thing he sees with the eyes, as everyone that isn't literally blind can see, and speaking of being literally blind, I wonder why we read where someone asks Messiah about, is this person a bigger sinner because he's like born blind? And he says, not so. No, it doesn't automatically mean that. That's what he's saying. And he's saying, if they saw these works back then, that you guys say you're better than that nation, if they saw these same works, he's saying, giving them an example and showing them, they would repent. And you're seeing these greater works now, and you're not repenting. I wonder what he's teaching them. We can read this. It's literally the exact opposite of what they're saying, which is we're in their heart, they're saying we're better than them. And they ask, is he a worse sinner or she? It doesn't matter, And then he brings that out that no, it doesn't just mean that. The judgments are so big, they're too vast. What about Job? How does someone know when that's happening to them? That he needs chastising and refining, and it's going to be trouble, and it's going to look like he's wicked to everybody. What about a discernment between that and an unbeliever? Can they see the difference that this exists, and because it exists, it's going to cause a lot of confusion without seeing the difference? And it's tormenting to start seeing it, really, it is. But then going back, like after plowing a little bit, is a lot more, don't even want to go in that direction. He finds the home, the person, it's swept up. And, robbers rob when they know nobody's home. Messiah is giving the parable, but comparing it to our spiritual walk, even our own self as like the home. Nobody's watching, nobody's home, nobody's inside, and the robber knows something about it. That's when he can take the best advantage, obviously, when there's no threat for people inside the house, and he brings in 7 other devils, worse than himself. Now it's going to be a madhouse, and the latter state of that man is worse than the first. That's what's the fear. It's going to be worse, period. That's the only way if we go back. So it's like the Father doesn't like that. It's like putting 7-fold judgment on the one that kills the killer, Cain. No, this is no good. This is not so. The judgment won't even be the same, which would be enough. He makes it stronger to show that he utterly rejects this. It's utter rejection from who and what he is. So now I'm seeing it here in this way right now, where the latter state, 7, that perfect, complete thing, the perfect process of being worse and worse and worse to the end, at the latter end, worse than the first, at the beginning. There's like a fear. There's a like, wow, it's going to be a lot worse because going backwards is gross, But so then it's confidence. It can give confidence and fear at the same time. I guess it should do both, because it can't just do one only. Because if it's what did I say, gross, evil, but what if that's like us or something, how does someone know? So then it, causes this fear going backwards like that. And we're talking about a real spiritual death and darkness, and the latter state being way worse than the first isn't exactly what any believer would want. But in deception, with not truly knowing, with knowledge, people do want that. They don't realize they want a path that goes into destruction. So then you talk like that, which makes people sound very dumb. And therefore it's highly offensive, because who on earth talks like that in this world? I want destruction. I want death. Even though these things do happen here and there, like that bad, literally, but that's not most people literally out in the open saying and doing that. So who would want to say that for themselves? That's what they would want. And yet you could try to get through, but the world won't hear that what your works are proving, that you want destruction. Someone's walking down the street to paint the picture, and it's a bad area, and there's all kinds of drug money thugs and poor, and a lot of crazy stuff going on, and someone's just walking, minding their own business. They're not going to do anything. Next thing you know, a couple just all of a sudden attach themselves to you, and they start walking backwards as you walk forward right next to you. What are they doing? They want to start something. And it's real nasty if they determine to do it, because once something happens like that, you did it. It's over already. It doesn't matter, even if you do what's right. In their mind, you did it. You started it. When you did nothing, and they literally started it, as an example here, if someone did the good, perfect thing in the example, I'm saying what evil will believe every time is that the other person started it. Has anyone ever wondered why 2 sides to something that both are so utterly convincing as the truth in the court, both, there's like no difference. They're both, most of the time, making themselves sound like they're utterly truthful equally, when that's not even possible. It's either one is true, one's a lie, or both are liars. They can't both be true. Um, and yet they both look so convincing all the time. I didn't know what that was, way back. Like, it came to my mind, but I couldn't see it. Like, you can't even ask the right questions. It's a weird thing to be blind, like fully blinded, where there's like something wrong and you just can't touch it. Why is that happening all so consistently? Well, I mean, both sides are going to defend self to the death practically, if it can. And it's more than like $2,000 or money. Of course, that's involved a lot in these examples, but it's about the image, and it's about winning and losing and money. It's all one tied together, and not able to look bad and look like the liar and lose something out of it too, or come out winning. And when you win, what do you really win when it's done through evil like that continually? What do they win? Go buy your car, go get a mansion, and they'll be destroyed within, and they'll have followed Messiah's words that they gave up their life, their soul, no eternal life, but it went into full-blown destruction. And it's to be seen what that is. But if someone can act like it's all going okay, then when we don't see what his word means, we don't have evidence for its truth for all people. Therefore, how could the faith and confidence be there for what we don't ever see for actual proof? And that's just something that grows over time. It's not there in the beginning at all. Even as a believer, it's not there. The day a baby's born, it's still that it's practically like it's unborn, but now it's alive at least, but it still knows nothing. And how come they don't bring this up, that being born again is something like being born? You have to like start, that's the picture, like you have to start learning and growing. There's a literal learning and growing what we literally didn't know, which is, I guess, a frightening thing to those that, don't, but it's not bad. But how do you tell that it's not bad? Gets better, you get over with it better over time. That people are afraid, we can't break his word just because we want someone in this world or family to believe, and it doesn't happen. And then, relatives, whatever. Everyone has their own thing going on, but I feel like this, not feel like the spiritual path will be, the Father can accomplish the same things through different ways, which is showing other things too amazing. It doesn't have to be the literal exact same physical experience, if you will, for every little thing, because that doesn't, a test could come in any kind of way, and through the simplest things it could come. And if someone doesn't care about the small thing, they're breaking the big things continually. But it's so backwards in this world. It's like marveling at the backwardness of it. You just can't believe it sometimes. And every time some kind of evil thing's done, it's like someone thinks they're wise when they support evil. And like choosing the lesser of two things is like a wise thing or something good. That's what we should do, choose the lesser of two evils. Where is that scripture though? Just throwing it out there. Where is the scripture that said we should choose evil and choose the lesser of two? And that's the truth. That's the way. That's like denying the Father can even make a way then. That's good, isn't it? If we do one for real, how are we doing the other good thing for real? I don't know how to do that. That's like walking to the left and right at the same time. It's like going up while you're going down at the same time. But in this world, that's relative. That's their protection. Just call it relative, because we got a bunch of other lies that are connected to this there is no up down, there's a bunch of other things connected to it that it's hiding. And so now you have to suppress and guard and put soldiers everywhere and say it's relative, and then put these people that look like smart guys and they're not smart. Even if they got like degrees and stuff, that's not the point. This is not worldly wisdom we're speaking of, but not wise. But they make themselves look wise, and they're like what people call gatekeepers. But even that's got its own deception in its own self. That's how bad it is, because it's not about gatekeeping. Now we got to find every single gatekeeper out there. It can't be done. I don't see it. It's a bottomless pit. It can't be found, all of them. It's crazy to try, but I tried, and I don't care that I tried. This is what I see right now today. It's crazy to try. It was stupid. Although, learn a lot of things through knowing things, different things about the world. And so then through that evil, something good works out. We're working like that with everything. So it's going to sound like there's room for a doctrine to teach to sin because of this truth. It's going to sound like there's room for teaching to teach that you can sin and should sin, because we say it's absolutely necessary to go through it, to make mistakes, failures, absolutely necessary. And what was the first thing? That you learn something good comes out of darkness, that works out, that the Father does. Kind of sounds like you can say now, go and sin, so that what grace could increase, favor could increase. That's stupid worldly wisdom, and it's evil. It breaks everything. It breaks what doesn't it break? That's how his narrow way is. It's like extreme care at all times, always multiple things to see all the time, but not in the beginning. It just grows into that. I can't imagine what it would be if it was dumped all at once in the beginning. You start really believing what Messiah says, that he has a lot more to say to them, but you cannot bear it. You can't hear it now. You can't bear it. Man doesn't like to be told what he cannot absolutely do, but it's the truth. The Father keeps proving it. Keeps proving it to me. Hope he's proving it to someone else, which is like hoping for something that people hate. It's a strange thing to say and talk like that the world hates, hoping for something that the world like running from. Please show us that we're even less of a God. Show us even more that we can't do anything of ourselves. Show us even more, please. Show us the bottom. What is the bottom? But then it's like there isn't just one time you hit the bottom, because then there's going to be individual bottoms for individual things to overcome. And they do show some good things in that it's been shown in entertainment that like once you hit the bottom, that was the point. Stop trying, give up. And then that worldly picture, wisdom that looks good, that is a good image, that is the perfect picture of something very true and good, but only applied and seen carnally, then it becomes no good now. But now it's no good in that compared to the real thing, it's no good. It's still good by itself. It's not a lie. It's not a lying picture or truth, words. Just in contrast, it just has no effect when that happens. So there's a real enmity that's out in the world everywhere where you don't see, kind of like the magnets, but you see the works and proof and evidence of it, the divisions and fightings and all the attacks everywhere in the world. I see the works and proof of this enmity. And the Father put it there. Who can take away what he put in? Who can make the crooked path straight? If he made it crooked, who can straighten it? Only him, because we didn't make the crooked path. It was already crooked for us to start with, even though mankind and we're all crooked, but we didn't design and make it crooked of ourselves by our own power. Come up with that idea. You could see the good out of it, but to do the reality perfectly every time a situation comes where you're supposed to do this good now, to see it the same way when it's not happening is like the goal. To see it the same way when there's not pressure in the moment, to see it the same way when there's pressure is the goal. That's all the difference. One is talk, one is doing the talk, like we read, not just a listener or hearer of the law, but a doer of it. It doesn't mean hearing it is bad all by itself, but when it's contrasted to doing it for the purpose of hearing connected to doing it, now if we're not doing it, in this contrast, hearing it is worthless, only hearing it. And yet it makes it look like, it's just how I'm seeing everything work. It makes the thing look like it's bad or trashing it. No, it's not. It's just that in contrast, when something's above something else, it's the higher, more important thing over the lower thing. So the lower thing needs to take its place to do the opposite and say the lower thing in reality is higher than the higher is evil. It needs to take its place. But then it doesn't automatically mean the lower thing is worthless. It's the foundation. It's like more important in some ways than the higher thing. Because without a foundation, there is no higher thing. There's no second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh floor without the foundation, which is lower, but in a way it's higher because it supports everything above it. And then the body can't boast either, because the members have a different use, if you will, but it's not boasting ever. It can't boast. The head's higher than the feet, literally, but the feet support the head, which means it's higher in its own way, but not literally, but in a different way. So it's like balanced out. I don't know how that can all be done while everything else is working at the same time for all other purposes at the same time. Some frightening wisdom. And what if it's only just a tiny little piece we see of the Father's wisdom and we're calling it frightening? That's what I actually believe in reality, that it's just a small piece. No one can see what they don't have or have given yet. But we read to ask. But it doesn't make sense for a wolf to ask for any good thing for real, because it's a wolf. The picture is perfect, literally perfect, of the spiritual reality on that. Why would a wolf or a roaring lion ask to die, to be humbled and die? It's a suicide mission. It's never going to do that. It needs to die by someone else's hand. It needs to be stricken, is that the right word, with the rod right in the face by someone else's hand. Then when it realizes that it can be easily hurt, which is a little bit of blinding healed, now it's like, okay, and you see a little bit. Then you have to learn to walk like a baby learns to walk. And that's literally the order. No skipping. No skipping any order. What we also can't skip is getting from 5 feet tall to 40. No matter how you want it, no matter how much I want it, it cannot go from 5 feet to 40 in one day. Not even in 1 month, not even in a year, not even in, that's the point. Time. So you have a lot, like a what? Wait a lot. There's no reason for the unbeliever to wait. It just is true. What are we going to do with it? There's no reason for them to wait. They're not even born. There's nothing to wait for. This tree doesn't even exist if the seed isn't sprouted yet. There's nothing to wait for. There's nothing to ask for. There's nothing to repent for. There's nothing to be sorry for. There's nothing to worry about doing evil. Because the lion doesn't care about killing, stealing, and destroying. That's who and what he is. What a cold, hard reality to face. That's who and what man is. Like a roaring lion, a wolf, a snake, a fox. Go tell that fox, I'm doing more miracles tomorrow, whether you like it or not, too bad. Go tell that 666 fox, Father's coming for him. He's going to destroy him with his love too. But no beast wants to die, though. The beast enter the ark. We read the beast entering in Revelation. And many scriptures about beasts, actually many, more than I ever knew was in there in the beginning. And then there's always like a direct, simple scripture about something. I think there's always a simple scripture that can't be denied by anyone for like every teaching. That's what I see. I don't see any evidence against that. In Ecclesiastes, the Father's saying, I want to show, manifest to the sons of men, show, manifest to them that they themselves are beasts. He wants to show everyone that. When is that verse a lie now? It's a pretty big verse. And it means the meaning is huge. Just one verse, because of what everything's connected to being a beast and all good things. And in contrast to being a beast, it's connected to everything. And all his words connected to all his word. Because the Father's one, literally, but then all things are one, that go back to one, that branch out from one. So then don't lie comes from one, and don't murder comes from the same one. And I don't know of any verse, any scripture anywhere that says we have the power and right to start messing with his commandments and saying, these can go away, these can stay. Where is that? How does that even work when they all come from the Father himself? And we read, if you break one, you break all. Don't forget that the same one said, don't do this also. A reminder that it's all one. It's pretty dumb to say, let's just say murder's thrown out the window and another one is not thrown out the window. The same Father said for both of them. It's pretty dumb. And it just is true. It's dumb to do that. Just to start seeing the Father for who he is, even a little bit, and that he's one and all things come from him. Just to see that should be enough for someone that's dumb, let alone so many others. All his word that's only going to support that's dumb. It's like an overwhelming evidence when sight is given, overwhelming, like a flood. Then you see the work so often where one verse throws down 50. It's backwards. Pictures all together, lining up for each other, simple. that can't be denied, and then all of a sudden one scripture comes out of nowhere and throws them all down. And now it's this thing to the right, and it's not that thing to the left that you say. And the truth is spiritual, right down the middle. Two things not divided, it's all one. It's not this thing over here or that thing over there. If that's the truth, then the opposite work's going to be done. If there's good and evil, then the opposite work is done already by the world. Then there's only one thing instead of two. That would be the backwards lie. And there's always so many witnesses to any truth. It's shown in sowing the seed, the mixing. It's shown with clothing. It's shown with different things that this mixing doesn't stand at all. And with the enemy, it's all mixing all the time. And it's just one thing instead of two things divided, where this division is good now, but that doesn't sound good. Therefore, it must not be true. It's like how the world thinks. Because it's a different kind of division now than the bad division, another different division being spoken of. Now this division is a good division. To call it anything else than a division is now evil. To try to make it and say with doctrine, this division over here is just like that division over there, is now 180 and backwards, and it becomes evil then. It becomes evil to say there's a narrow way within his borders, something he showed me recently. Because there is no narrow way within his borders. It becomes evil to say there is now, but that's going to contradict other scriptures in his word, where the narrow way is the truth and anything but that is false. But now there's no narrow way within his borders. That's to say that there's laws against good, that you can't freely roam. There's no law against good. You could do whatever you want, which makes it sound like lawlessness. When you say you can do whatever you want, and somebody teaching lawlessness for real now gets angry at this thing and what it sounds like, and then that's what happens. Not seeing the truth on something and then only seeing the carnal thing and through darkness, then it condemns something good as an evil thing. So it's like the only way I can sum it up is that the Father's truth doesn't work like the carnal man works at all. He has to literally learn all of it on how it works, when it applies, when's it true, when does this happen, when does that happen. It's never like a system, but that's the best the devil can do, is create a fixed system and many different kinds. And because it's like fixed like that, it's already a lie, because his truth doesn't work like that ever. Just by fixing it is already a lie, a grand lie, and it's going to break everything. Exposing the carnality of man, like, here's the 10 commandments, here it is written down, now you do them. It doesn't work, that's the point. And yet the commandments didn't disappear and they're good, but it makes it sound like they went away, when the truth on the true thing is given, makes it sound bad. Makes it sound like someone would say it's disappeared and gone away and it's worthless. And yet we have every single verse by those that go and take a side like that and teach that as a major doctrine and a division, and say the law like went away. But we're of Paul. They don't even acknowledge his own letters. They don't believe when they say they're of him and taking the side that the law disappeared or something. He himself says it over and over that it didn't. How come they never bring that up? How come they're not without partiality? And then if you take another extreme that's without the Father's truth, it will be the same thing, but just look a little different. It'll be doing the same evil work and denying many scriptures, but it'll look a little different because it's about something a little different. Or it could be the opposite. It could be the law didn't go away, but then you could, the same thing happens, but it's a little different now because it's not about the law going away, but now it's saying like it didn't go away, which is true, which sounds true, which draws people in that find it to be true. And there's nothing wrong with saying true words by itself. Just the painting. Oh, I've got different, they come in different names too. The last time there was like 4 different names that did the same tech rather. Okay. Well, I have a hard time to even respond. I'm just not used to it. It's like, oh, I do mean thanks, but it's like, just with what I see, it's hard to even say that. Everything's become difficult. Everything, even just saying thanks has become difficult, which is telling me I still need to see a lot more. And it's not likely going to be for the reason someone would think it's difficult, but it's not, the world won't see it. And in that way, it's difficult. Because with the world, it's never about the intention of the heart, the real good works. It's just how you look, that's it, or sound. So, you say thanks, and that sounds good. Yeah, but what if I said it out of a corrupt heart? Would someone see if that was done? Just to bring it out. And it's like, this is how it can be done for anything. Too many evils. It's always more complicated, or complicated with evil, but simple with truth, because truth supports itself and lies go against its own self. So it gets complicated quick. An explosion of evil and shrapnel and scattering. And thinking about the literal explosions, and what people have done with wars is becoming more and more mind-numbing to me every day. But it's not out of self-righteous, because that's the evil thing. It's just out of, wow, mankind, including self, is utterly blind before believing, no sight. And then evil starts getting more, it starts becoming evil. Then it gets more evil, which is what it needs to be to someone. And when evil starts becoming evil for us, that's when it becomes more offensive. That's when it starts becoming offensive, and then it grows into more offensive. It just has to be that way. And it's like, everything's difficult. They're going to think you want to hurt them constantly, which doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, as I've done. But the intention's not there to screw an unbeliever and hurt them, But it's always going to look like that and sound like that if we're doing what's right. It grows into this thing. And it just doesn't ever get believed. It's a strange thing. It really is like a desert. You might as well be in a cave and communicate with a couple other people in the caves out there. That's pretty much it. But I don't live in a literal desert, and yet that scripture is meaning everything. It means everything. You just need to learn what it means, and it is applying to everything. Just need to see how. So we don't need to be in a literal desert, because the higher spiritual meaning, the Father already knows. You don't have to, because the carnal thing by itself never proves anything, but the spiritual things do prove everything. The carnal things by itself prove nothing, which doesn't mean they're worthless and no good all by itself. It's just that in contrast, they don't prove anything to the lower thing in contrast. But it's assumed automatically that the lower thing's worthless when the contrast is made by many, because it looks that way. And I've been repeating that a lot because I guess it's gotten a little clearer to me lately on just how true that is, that it just doesn't matter what something looks like. And yet we've heard don't judge a book by its cover, but it never meant anything to me until the real things the Father teaches starts coming in. Now you can start seeing what that means, and you believe what it means more and more, unlike not believing what it means, but just saying, don't judge a book by its cover. There's nothing wrong with those words. That is true words. Don't judge the cover as being something, as proving something by itself, because it can't prove something by itself. It's just interesting how He's shown me the commandments work. The lower thing is important and connected, but cut off by itself, it's not. But yet, when we're doing it the right way, then there is an importance to it. And it does show a lot of things. To me, it shows me a lot of things. It shows me that the world doesn't care about what unclean food means, when it's like full blown no care for, just zero care for it. But not speaking out of carnal, saying those words, where automatically it's assumed, oh, you're one of those people. No, that's not the intention. It wasn't even about me. It's always about His things. That's the perfect thing, not self. It's about speaking out of seeing the spiritual thing that the Father gives and teaches, and now you start seeing the valuable meaning and why it's good to keep this. But as soon as you say a few words on it, the world will just assume something and judge it for it, which means that they're judging a book by its cover. That's the works right there. The very works that the world says, I don't see it do. That's judging a book. That's taking this law, for example, using it for an example. When someone hears it, there's going to be like two extreme sides. Do you keep it or do you not? If you do, you must be of this group and these divisions. If you don't, you must be this. And you're one of those. They already have like all the categories and everything ready to be named under, which is exactly what I'm running from these categories. And I believe every other believer should be too, because there's a reason why the system is set up that way. It's ready to throw down anything that it wants and can, or thinks it can. It's like the world's already set up to be attacked and made fun of. And that's like how I see the Father made the wisdom of this world foolishness in this one way, this massive way, where it's like already set up to fail. But, the way it works is that the one that's attacking another division or whatever doesn't see for self, and the other does the same thing. And it's like literally a madhouse. And there's like this one unity, the real thing, wanting to see it and not seeing it, but always contrasting to the many, because that's the reality we live in. That the many, the world does not believe, does not see Him, does not hear Him, like we read. Can't see Him, can't see Him, can't hear Him. it's like utter authority already. When the understanding is starting to be seen and believed, it's utter authority, but it's no authority for those that are against His truth. It's not authority to them. It's like, this is how the Father shows us that His truth just never broken, to start seeing the real things, that the world will always be what the world is one way. He shows it, that no matter what man comes up with and does, he can't fix it. The world will still be in unbelief. And what if we really believe this with the heart, it will cause so many other things to just stop and die, and they'll be cut off. Like the evil will be cut off over time, and it'll dry up and die, which is good. Instead of being cut off and your life dying, the evil's like cut off. Because if the heart really believes that truth about what the world is and always will be to the end, not forever, if that is seen and believed, see how someone can see how a bunch of other things would just start dying, because that's a foundation right there. And if that's truly believed, how can you do anything that contradicts it under it or above it, depending which way you go? It's the foundation. That means you're going to see and start believing that the worldly ways can't fix itself, because the world will always need to be what we read in unbelief, and unbelief is condemnation, and condemnation is death. So then to start trying to say we can fix it is to try and say death can fix death, and it can fix itself, and it can turn into life somehow. Yeah, that's a real death, to die. It's very real, even if it's, spiritual things are very real. It's a real death to die. And it's going to be connected to literal works too, even physically. It's going to be connected to all kinds of things. And you can't tell someone what to do and control them in this way, because it's monstrous. I mean, the knowledge has to come from above. You can't just tell someone, go do this real quick, and then they literally do it, and now it's done. That's how you keep someone from the truth, by saying the lower thing that's not the truth, the higher thing, and saying it's the truth. You keep them from the truth, the heavenly higher things. And then deception can be worked like that, where you don't even need to really look bad. You just need to keep someone believing that the lower thing is the higher thing, which won't look bad, that I can think of right now. Or maybe in most cases it wouldn't look so bad. And yet it's a massive deception and evil. But the devil smiles while evil is done. That's what I've seen. Smiling. Nice cover. And he winks. Winks at us too. Points the finger, shuffles the feet, bites the lip. The twitching and biting of the lip, lying to our neighbor, deceiving them and self when those works are done. It's cold reality. There's cold, there's hot, everything in between. So it's like that for everything. The truth is like that. And there's greater and lesser. But it doesn't mean the lesser thing, it has no importance. It's just lesser in contrast to the greater. And in fact, the lesser things are greater in a way than the bigger things, because that's where you start from. And if someone doesn't care Messiah's teaching and don't really do the little things, how will you do the greater or bigger things? I'm not sure how it's worded right now. You can't skip, just like growth can't be skipped. Same with the small things. You have to start there and go through it, which means it's pretty darn valuable all of a sudden. Without that small thing, there is no big thing. Therefore, the small things are incredibly important. When contrasted to greater things, they're incredibly less important if it's a way smaller thing. And that's a contradiction. People don't like that with the letters. With actual meaning and understanding and rightly dividing, there's no contradictions in his word. But if we didn't come from understanding, and I just assume everyone knows, just to bring something out, and then I just say two things and they're literally contradicting, how does someone know what we're speaking of? So this is what it would sound like without trying to explain what you see in your mind and spirit, and skipping trying to explain it with words. It would sound like this: the lesser things are lesser than the greater and not as big. The lesser things are greater than the big things. There it is. That's how it sounds. And that looks stupid. Contradictions look bad and makes people flee. But then, like, the church world can't see all the contradictions it does, and they don't flee. What a confused world. It just depends why someone's fleeing and why they're not fleeing. That's how confusing it is. There's no set thing that I can see or find that's always true. It depends where it's being spoken out of and coming from. So that's that phrase people like, it depends. It's like true for his word. But if you say that so much in this world over and over again, it's like the boy cried wolf. And we start seeing real things that he gives us, and we go, it depends. And it's like we see wisdom in it, but it sounds just the same. Then it becomes like the boy crying wolf. It's like stupid. That's what the world says. And that's what people will say in their mind. That's what the world says. What everyone says, you idiot. Yeah, but not everyone's doing what it means. And you can't even take credit for doing good, actual good, which is even more of a breaking down. Without the Father, the works would never be done. That's the reality that I see and believe in. It's proven. Without Messiah, we can do nothing. But we also read in Messiah, you could do all things. But without him, Messiah says, without him, we can do nothing. With him, all things. It's like a pretty stark contrast. Nothing or everything. Light or dark. Simple. But it's not the words in the world. It's the heart of the world of carnal man that doesn't want to believe that man can't do any concerning the Father's good and truth without him. It's the heart that doesn't believe that, not what people say by itself. And because that's true, it causes more confusion. And you can't even answer someone in and of the world if they speak or say something, the conversation starts, you can't even answer the same way, because you have to answer out of truth, out of what we see that the Father's given, and not out of the delusion that we've been blinded to. You're coming out of that. So then you can't answer delusion for delusion. Can't do that anymore, and that needs to grow. But it's just to say, look at Messiah's answers every time there's a question towards him. He's answering out of truth. It doesn't matter that they don't see and can't hear his words. He's doing what's right, regardless of what they're doing, thinking, and judging. That's what a believer's path should be, but that's incredibly difficult to do, impossible without him. Because that's just speaking truth out of love without partiality, and not mattering what someone's doing, saying, which means there needs to be a confidence and sight in truth in order to genuinely not be swayed by what someone thinks of you or believes of you or accuses of you. All of that's right there, sitting there all the time, and you have to overcome all that. it's a miracle like 24/7. Anyone's growing, it's a miracle. And a literal tree growing is a miracle. And if that's a miracle, how much more the heavenly spiritual thing? It wouldn't happen without his power. Same with the growth of, the creation. Sustaining it, growing it, power, wisdom of the Father. And in this way, we read the scriptures that scream out his truth. But you start seeing that out of receiving different truths from him. Now you can start seeing how the creation's doing what we read. But it's like dead to those that are dead. Just doesn't mean, it's so bad and dead that we can read literally about what nations, the unbelievers do with trees, cuts them down, decks them, does all this stuff. And someone can be doing that with like a Bible nearby, and they're still doing that the rest of their life. It's not about the trees in the present by itself. It's a real spiritual deception, and it's a spiritual war. And if you were to read that to someone with a tree in the house, I'm just saying, it's like, what are we going to expect if that was done? Instant, like justification, instant. So then, one way tricks can be done is sleight of hand with his word. But you can picture like that thing with like magic shows or something. But this is like how it's done with his word, where they can't answer out of truth. They're being contradicted. They see something about it and they have nowhere to go. So one way, if it's available, if that's the only way, you start waving your right hand like crazy. They want you to look at it while they try to fix the problem with the left hand. And both hands are connected to the body. That's a self-deceiver, and he's deceiving someone else trying to. But he's self-deceiving himself. Both are true, because the body, every member's connected to the body. How can the right hand truly not know anything that the left hand's doing when the same head runs both of the hands? It's pretty dumb to say that's possible, but in delusion, it's possible. That's the desperation of evil. It has to be stupid. When it's not the truth, it has to be stupid. That's the way the Father traps everyone, including us. If we do evil and something stupid, it will be stupid. It has to be. Because if the very truth was denied, and that's the truth, that's the only truth, whatever it is. If it's anything but the truth, it's going to be dumb because it doesn't work, and you have to see how it's dumb and stupid and foolish. So trying to separate your hands and, trying to connect this to spiritual things is dumb. You have to convince yourself that the lie you give is real. In order to pass that off, you have to believe a lie. And someone would rather believe a lie in this world than to have anything to do with truth coming their way, or self-contradiction, doctrines and demons and traditions being exposed. They would rather be desperate and believe a lie over loving truth, even if that means that they're exposed. So what? But that matters a lot, not to be exposed. But it gets harder to understand why that's such a problem when everything that the Father does and gives is good. It's getting harder to remember and see why people don't like that. And then self was the same, always needing to remember that too, always something to keep you in check. And if you do something wrong, we're a hypocrite. Always something there to make us a hypocrite if we do the wrong thing. Is anyone frustrated yet that the Father's, there's no way to screw with him or mock him or trick him at all? Zero. There's nothing that can be done. Kind of might make someone feel a little trapped. And then if someone can see it, that's the only good way in this sense, is to be and feel trapped. Anything else than feeling trapped, speaking out of this now, is a lie and not good, not from him. Now it's necessary for something that sounds and looks bad. It's necessary to be trapped in this way. He catches, he traps. You trap something in a cage, he traps mankind for sinning, traps them in their own sin. They end up condemning and doing the very sin they're putting on someone else or trying to hurt someone. And they end up doing it. It ends up, they blow themselves up and the same sin comes back on them. But this applies for everyone, believers, unbelievers, all mankind. It's like, no, there's no way to do evil without being foolish, without being a liar, without being a deceiver, without breaking all his word. Just needs to be seen how it's true. It then starts becoming impossible for me to see how his truth could be just simply written down on a website real quick. I don't know how to do that. I literally don't know how to do that. Assuming more than one verse would be done or something. Try and explain a bunch of things. I wouldn't know how to do that. It'd be a lot of work just not to be understood. But then if we don't do something because we know we won't be understood, is a false intention. That means the intention is, if it's not the good thing, if it's the bad thing, then the intention for doing something is only after making sure someone understands, believes, gives you credit, gives money, especially money, worship, power, money. That means if they didn't get all those things, they wouldn't do the so-called good thing. And if it is done the evil way, that means they didn't actually do the good thing or understand it, believe it. Just made it look like it's doing it when that's the intention. Genesis. Every thought and intent of the heart is only evil continually. So fiery, short words that talk about the whole heart for mankind, all of them. He's easily deceived. Genesis shows this right in the beginning. They get easily, quickly deceived. That's everyone. It already happened. That's how true the Father's word is. It's a weird teaching in itself that it's already true. In a world where his truth is not true, trying to break through that lie and say his word's already true. It's not coming true someday. It's already true and will be true and was true. It means everyone's already been deceived. First, sold under sin to the devil, but then a few now being bought back for a price, the same sum of money, right, that the man was sold under. Now, why did the Father do that? So he could buy them back. Otherwise, he couldn't show that he could buy them back. It's that easy for him. It's not easy for the harlot. Very difficult. It's impossible. With man, it isn't possible. They prove it. With their doctrine, they prove what Messiah is saying, teaching, which is in his word, not just there. With man, it's impossible. And to do his things, to do his will of self, power. But with him, all things are possible. They might want to consider something and just read it over and over again and don't think about anything else. This is like how I would talk, to try to, it blows up. Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. You want to see it, but you don't see it. Go over here on this one verse or this, read it a bunch of times. Don't try to do anything else. And now tell us why you don't believe. Isn't that fiery and offensive? to say that to a Bible believing person that say they are. Why don't you believe this verse, especially Messiah's teaching here? But is it seen why it's not believed? Not wanting, not seeing, not wanting to see from their side. If there's no hope for man forever, that means the Father, what? Well, he obviously couldn't do something forever, but I read that nothing's impossible with it. Don't they believe that that means what it means there? Now, when it should mean what it means, and it's simple, it's a parable now. It's become a parable unto them. Just, he's not lying. It's simple truth. There's a lot of simple scriptures that are simply true. Well, they're all true, but just to bring out that he doesn't play games. Is there anything too hard? Nothing impossible with the Father. And is there anything too hard for him to do? Go ahead and say it's hard. It still fits under this scripture. Is anything too hard? Is there even one thing? You know, what's that scripture bringing out for meaning? That there's nothing too hard. That's what it means. It's simple. They can't deny that. How could anyone deny that? But it's too hard to show love to all humanity. Maybe that's who they are. It's a little too hard to show love to people you hate. Yeah, it's difficult. It's impossible. So the Father catches everyone in their craftiness, their own doctrine. They live what it means. People live. It's not the Father that's evil and it's too hard for him to show love. It's the people teaching hell, as it's taught, that it's too hard for them to show a little love and mercy to their enemies. It goes back to self being the very thing that is accused by self. How often is that happening? And then it's difficult to see when self makes mistakes and ends up being that. But then you have to repent. But it does hurt finding out that that happens. Hurts big time. Too bad. Deal with it. You know, it's like you see that's who the Father is. Too bad. Deal with it. I'll make you deal with it. Not alone, not by self, but he does. He's right there doing the works. Not ditching us, saying, now do it alone. That was like the first covenant. You say you can keep it, do it. Let it be according to everyone's word, what their heart says. But of course, you know, I mean, that's not seen in religion either. It's become so monstrous, the hell doctrine as it's taught, because of other deeper understandings coming. It becomes more evil. It's growing to be more evil. It's whatever it is already that, but not for me, not for someone else. It's growing for us to be more evil than it was a year earlier. That means we see more that we didn't see, literally, proving a blinding. If we're learning and seeing something become more evil, that's through seeing more, which means we didn't see. Can't say we see more without first not seeing something. Therefore, the Father's constantly proving to his people that they don't see without him, that they're being healed, proving that they were blind, still are, but see, that has to be explained then, because whatever we don't see, we're blind to. So now I could say, I'm blind. Well, then someone says, yeah, unbelievers are blind. You're an unbeliever. You know, where is it coming from? But that's not the case with this. Even though that's true to whatever we don't see, we're blind to right now. That has nothing to do with not being a believer automatically, because it's under his favor. It's under, you know, the Father already knows that we have to grow and that we didn't see anything. He's not telling us and putting pressure on us and breaking his own word and putting a heavy yoke and burden on his own people, and then saying and teaching, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Messiah says, but not his Father. That's monstrous. So then the Father himself doesn't do this, of course. That's why we read Messiah saying that his way is not, because that's who the Father, he doesn't do that. People put heavy yokes and burdens on people. Expectations put them in debt. And if you don't do what, if someone doesn't do what someone secretly thinks in their mind that they put secretly onto someone else that they should do, they just created their own standard out of nowhere. And if it's not matched exactly how someone thinks that they made up, now that person's evil. Now they must be evil, and no good. Must be a lying deceiver continually, must not be a believer. Something like that happens all the time. The kingdom of heaven is likened to a seed, and then it sprouts and it becomes a tree. What on earth does that mean to some unbeliever out there today? Using it as an example, it doesn't mean anything. They can hear the words, they can see some kind of natural wisdom or something, but they can't hear the words and what it means. Seeing that takes to be given for real, because his word is it's out of whatever it means. We have to learn. It's like there's the word. Now he needs to give us the meaning of his word. His word is designed to be connected to him. It is him. So to disconnect it is all evil. It's all evil. Disconnect it. It's like his word is to be learned with the Father being the teacher right there. Otherwise, the understanding can't be had. But you could read it, though. Anybody could read it. Here's some more names. We say what they do, and then they still, I said earlier that they come in different names, but now these two popped up at some point that wasn't there earlier. And I think they're hiding because I don't see more than one viewer. I don't know if they went out of their way to make it so they're not visible. That takes a lot of work just to do this evil. It takes a lot of work to build the bricks for Egypt just for no gain. To try to say it. They make you work even harder, and you get no wages concerning the good wages from our Father above, for real wages for doing good that actually matter and make all the difference, life itself. In that way, that has to be understood, because people do get literal wages all the time. We're not speaking of that. And if someone couldn't see where we're speaking out of from an understanding, we look violently stupid by saying, you don't get any wages. You're wasting your time doing evil. But it's always tempting. It's always trying to draw you in and say it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth it constantly. It's tiring hearing it. Just go away, get away, get away, get away from me. Like Messiah said, away from me, go away. You pervert of his word, cleverly using scripture, making it look appealing and sounding true, but it wasn't true. The examples were given, how he uses his word so cleverly like that. Go ahead and jump off. This temptation, that's what it really is. It's to save you now. He wants Messiah to do evil. That's the real thing in the heart that's going on. But the doctrine that looks good is to sell, to do the real evil, to sell that secretly, to eat that and do it, become it, to trick. But it looks so close to the real thing so many times, that it's going to And not only is it looking close, it gets people to believe the 50-50 lukewarm thing. Because it looks like the good thing, they must be doing it. And the only reason that thing exists there is to do evil for real. So then this looking is not real, and this evil, it's just all evil then. You look good doing it. You give evil works to Adam. It looks like she's giving Adam a gift. It does look good. Yes, it does. If that's all someone sees is Eve smiling and saying, I have a gift for you, what is the reality of eating those works, eating that fruit for Adam now? What's the real thing under the hood, the Genesis? It's like always been there. It's amazing. So much in Genesis and everywhere, but just even right in the beginning, so much. Where you see a little and then you see more and you see more. And I already read the words. It's not like the word got bigger. It's not like there was more words added since last time reading, and yet it's like you see more. Might as well look insane to someone that's not seeing anything. So it looks good on the outside. It looks like a gift so many times, used through a gift, because gifts are that they got power when it's through evil like that, to control people, put them in debt, make them feel guilty, which is a horrible, evil thing to do, because it puts the person in a rotten position at all times. You're going to look bad, period. They did accomplish that already. If you want to do the good thing now you have to look bad for someone doing that to you. And they try to get that creeping guilt, about for not accepting it. That's already a sin first. Now a sin first to the one doing evil. It's whatever you do, now you did the sin, and not the first works of the other person. It's a cold, cruel reality to see that that's happening constantly. That's like how gifts are also used often. And I could remember it, I don't know, many times that I've felt this guilt that people put on, but then you put it on them too. We did the same thing. But now I don't want to do that. See it as evil. To do the right thing now causes all kinds of difficulties because it's connected to a bunch of other good things, and right on the other side, a bunch of evil things. The more you see, the more things there are like to fail or do wrong. You can't even speak the way you want to without looking bad. It just is. I don't see any other way. But it's also true that years ago, that would have been true for me, but just way smaller, just a lot smaller, which means less offensive. Also on the other side of that, but then as it grows, that truth always stays the same, but now it's growing. Now it becomes more offensive too, as a result. Become more of a curse to people because they see light. If indeed they're seeing light, they're seeing the very works of light. They're seeing the very works and evidence of the Father's people, which connects and goes back to Him, always back to the Father. And without Him, there would be no one with His light. Didn't come from Himself. They want to see something. This is the confusion I see. This is real twisted. Someone wants to see secretly. They're hiding this. They want to see proof that there is a creator, that there is something. But then when they see it, it breaks them at some point so often. And then they attack the very thing that it looked like they wanted to see. They just attacked all existence. They attacked everything there is to attack. Now, saying that this was the true light, picturing it, and that's it, just the narrow way. there is no other light in the world. Whatever they look for now will be darkness, and they don't even realize they just murdered the only good thing that they were secretly sort of looking for. You can't give that to someone. They just will say whatever they need to say. I don't believe it. You're a liar. I didn't do what you said. So then it's become difficult just to do good. It's astonishing. Nothing is like what I thought it would be or something, nothing. Where people, random people flare up and go crazy just for saying a couple words real quick, maybe passing by. And the devil rages just for saying something like, the food from above is the real food. That's it. That's it. And they lose their mind. How do I do good as I go away? How do I do good? What is this? That was the best I could do. That was from the heart. Maybe that's why it was hated so much, because it was real. Maybe that's why it's hated almost all the time. But then the evil that comes to the people is hated, because that's not blessed ever. If someone's doing fakery to someone else, the Father doesn't bless that. So it's like even become difficult, like, to do any good, which sort of creates incentive, creates temptations that come up in the mind, which is, if this is going to be the case more and more, or a lot of times, why do any good? But then you can't say that without being a hypocrite, because then the Father, if indeed he had mercy on someone, the one speaking is a hypocrite. And then we're judging as like the Creator. Okay, here's how he'll fix that. Who had mercy on you that didn't deserve it? That was a rotten, filthy sinner to one of my people that maybe you saw, and they saw what you were. Now you had mercy shown, and now nothing for that person, right? I'm not going to do anything because of the reaction, right? And then you see too much. So then it's like you see two things. The evil thing, like complaining or like complaining in that way, or going backwards, going away, or continuing that, which that's what comes so often, the result of that. It's two difficult, crazy things, and there is nothing else. Which way then? So somehow the right way still, but something needs to appear that it's not there, literally, spiritually. It needs to appear. Not seeing something, it's got to make more sense than what it's making now. There's definitely more power that's needed. I do see that. There's definitely way more power needed to do have some knowledge now. And now seeing that the inability to do it properly means we need more power, more healing. Keep the weight to grow taller, bigger, more power, see more. Forces you to have patience. And it's been a lot of times lately where it's like just the teeth are kind of on edge because of this reality, because it's which way? This is bad. All of it's bad. Not calling his things bad. It's just the difficulty of seeing something. It's like brutal. It's proving not able to do what I see for knowledge, like always needing to increase in this way, always proving that. He's always proving that. And that's difficult all by itself. And then there's just doing it somehow, seeing that you're not able to do it perfectly, wanting to, seeing it, and now needing to literally become it somehow, some way that you literally cannot do in how you maybe will do 6 months from now, or 7, 8 months, a year from now, you know. And then there's no condemnation. That is the narrow way. It's like that. It's like war, constant growth, battle, war. That's the narrow way under his favor. He doesn't make you need to do something that you literally cannot do and have no knowledge, or not enough knowledge, no knowledge, whatever the one is. It's like a parent making a 5-year-old drive a car. That's evil. The Father doesn't do that because he can't, literally can't. And that's like sadistic. That's like mankind doing that work. That's mankind, not the Father. Go drive this car. Which, what will that cause? Ease? I can sort of wait now and be okay. I don't have to do any good because of the truth of needing to grow. Could cause you to do some other wrong now. And you can't do that either. I mean, you can, but, you know, that's not the point. Can't, in that it's sin too. No, because it sounds like, you know, if you can't do something just yet, now it might sound like under his favor. Well, just go and sin then. Relax. No, there's teachings for that too. Yeah, it's a very narrow way. You begin to beat his servants and get drunk with them, delaying. That would be delaying spiritually. Moses is on the mountain and we read delay. He must be dead. What's of it? Let's build our own gods and sin. Who knows? He probably won't come. He might be, you know. But that's an amazing thing there, because it's true every generation with Messiah right now. That's like the spirit of delay that we read of with Moses. And Moses comes down and sees the works, you know, and he's angry. And it's many going into sin, his own people, called Israel, Jerusalem, his people. Many called, were the few chosen. But Messiah is it not happening right now, you know, this judgment that they're not aware of, to see what's going on. What are they doing in their heart? Is it what we read with Moses and having other gods and what that means in the heart? But then at the end, maybe Moses actually comes down the mountain, you know. One truth doesn't take away another. Isn't that the end of the prophecy, or the end? Instead of Moses on earth on a mountain, which is higher but still connected to the earth, though, Messiah in heaven, power, heavenly, spiritual, higher. Therefore, with Moses, all the things with Moses are not the heavenly thing. So we have the letters, we have the foundation, we have the natural thing on what sin is, the foundation for it. But the heavenly thing needs to be given to see how to do it. Without this, without the Father giving us everything to see what it means, all his commandments, his word, it won't have any profit. Then you end up breaking the spiritual law continually, instead of like a literal, natural law, if you will, you absolutely break the spiritual law, the higher thing, the first thing. And if that's being broken all the time, what profit is it to not murder anymore, to not literally steal, or at least think you're not stealing, at least make a show for it, at least not look like it? Then there's no profit by itself. Disconnected from above heaven, but the two becoming one is the only way. Heaven becoming one with earth, on earth as it is in heaven, which means it's good in heaven. It's not sin. I don't see any scripture that teaches that there ever was sin, but we have the scriptures, like always, that if they're not understood at all, with at least some understanding given, it's going to sound like and can be used like that there's massive sin in heaven. And it's like for every teaching that exists, that same thing exists like for everything. If it's not understood, you will have the lie. It's like it has to be that or the good thing. And it's no surprise the backwards thing is taught, which is like the as above, so below. Backwards, where it's on earth now because that's how it is in heaven. One image, sin above, therefore it is beneath. That's a lie. That's backwards. It's the devil's backwards flip thing of the truth, which is on earth as it is in heaven, because it's already, there's no corruption, no sin, no corruption. Messiah is what now? Now let's say it is what this world says it is. Messiah is then praying for it to be sin on earth. It becomes a pretty big blasphemy pretty quick when the truth isn't believed or seen or given. It has to be a blasphemy and a monstrous lie that quick. The Messiah is making a vain prayer for evil to be on earth forever, because it is in heaven like that, so let it be on earth as it is in heaven, sin. That has nothing to do with the good news. That's literally backwards. That's hopelessness forever. It sounds like a doctrine of the devil to me. Go crazy just for caring. Just for caring. Go start going crazy. No big deal. No, it can't be. I mean, that sounded real bad. But isn't it true? How can it be denied that that's what Messiah would be praying for? It sounds real bad, therefore it must not be true. Therefore, we're just making people look bad. Now we're evil for making someone look bad. That's not caring about truth at all. That's only defending its own teachings, traditions, and staying away from truth. They make it about you or me. They make it about that. It's a sleight of hand trick to try to get you to forget that it's about his truth, which goes back to the Father, and that's it. Now, if they can make it about you, you can maybe try to trick someone, try to get out of this sticky situation. Gord, Woden, Sandra, 4 different names. At least use the same name. Come on. But it's going to be assumed that the blinding is put on us automatically, right? That's like a heavy burden, a heavy yoke. You just dump a blinding on someone regardless of the works. It just automatically is because someone says so. Because man says so, it must be automatically true. This is how that works. Someone's blinding through doing evil is assumed and dumped on someone else. And then if you believe their lie that they try to trick you with, You're the idiot now for believing them. Can't they see that all of that work was evil and that they were the idiot? That they are the originator of all evil and idiot? It doesn't work dumping it on someone else, even if it's right carnally. It doesn't matter. The evil was done first by the person with evil intent. There's no reward for obeying and doing good in this way, in this world. There's no incentive from this world to care and do about what we're talking about, that this is evil. There's incentive carnally to do evil and get gain. But there is incentive and good reward. It's just not from this world. It's from the Creator above. He gives us the reward for doing good. Then you don't need to get the rewards of this world when you have the real things from Him. Just the benefit for doing what's right. You don't need it. Someone that doesn't have any of the Father's things, His Spirit, His life, His gift, then you need to get carnal reward somehow and carnal gain. I think that's all I got for this one. Please take care, seek truth from above.